Well, good morning and welcome to what is the third of a series of three sessions looking in more detail at the process of how to demonstrate compliance with the requirements for the Green Homes Grant. In earlier modules, we looked at product standards and the vetting that the IAA does to make sure that member manufacturers' products are suitable. We then looked at installation standards and requirements for a quality management system. As I say, in this session, we're basically looking at the process of how you gain PAS certification as evidence of compliance. I should say I'm Jerry Miller. I work as a consultant with the IAA. My co-presenters are Ron Fennick, the IAA's head of certification, and he will look at the actual application process, the costs and the benefits in greater detail. So off we go. Just a bit of housekeeping. There is a Q&A function somewhere on your screen. If you could post any questions, we'll answer those at the end of the session. As I say, in terms of the agenda, we're just going to quickly recap the GHG requirements, the approach to certification that we've worked on with the FMB, and finally Ron will go through the process of applying for certification, the costs and the benefits of gaining certification. So GHG Delivery, just as a a recap, in order to qualify and be eligible to participate in the Green Homes Grant scheme and be able to access the funding, contractors must be registered with Trustmark, and Trustmark itself mandates PAS 2030 certification for measures that are within scope of the PAS, or in the case of microgen, certification against MCS. As highlighted in the previous module, under a temporary easement, new entrant contractors who don't yet meet the requirements of the current PAS 2030-2019, but who meet the earlier 2017 edition, can be temporarily certified against the earlier edition, effectively allowing new entrants to work on the Green Homes Grant. Registration also requires compliance with the various Trustmark codes, requires the provision of financial protection or guarantees for work as specified by Trustmark using one of their approved financial protection and guarantee providers, of which the IAA is one. And lodgement of the details of work in the Trustmark data warehouse. So in practice, how does this work? Well, Trustmark registration is available by applying and being assessed by an approved Trustmark scheme provider, such as the FMB. Certification is available from a UCAS accredited certification body such as the IAA, and in the case of the IAA, that also gives access to a competent person scheme for cavity wall insulation, access to independent guarantees, access to independent surveillance of assessments of suitability as specified in PAS, and certification against PAS 2030. Therefore, IAA certification in conjunction with the FMB Trustmark scheme effectively provides the way in to Green Homes Grant work. For Green Homes Grants, it's also necessary to register with the GHG scheme administrator, and this is basically so they know who to pay, so that there is one extra step involved in that. In terms of the certification that IAA offers, we basically cover all eligible insulation measures, cavity, external wall, internal, room in roof, loft, underfloor, or park homes. So that's kind of how it works. I suppose the key question is, so how easy and quick is it to gain certification against PAS 2030? It can be a quick process, 12 days, but it's certainly not a tick box exercise. And I think in earlier sessions, we highlighted the challenges that are involved if one is looking to be certified against the 2019 revision of PAS 2030, which has more complex and challenging competence requirements and requires the use of a PAS 2035 compliant design under the supervision of a retrofit coordinator. I suppose the headline is that certification would be achievable by anyone, but in the very tight GHG timescales, if a contractor is not operating a quality management system and using competent staff, it would be difficult to demonstrate compliance with 2019 realistically. Although there is a route whereby temporary certification against the earlier standard, which is less challenging, can be granted. Excuse me. Quick overview of how it could work. The application for certification needs to be endorsed by a system designer for measures that are systems. The reason for this is that under the technical approvals, mainly Agreement certificates that cover systems, the system designer has to provide training and oversee work by contractors using their system to make sure that they're competent. There is then a desktop review of the application and a request for any missing information. For example, if there's no insurance details, that would be followed up. Assuming the application meets all of the criteria and includes all the necessary evidence, there is then a headquarters audit which looks at the procedures and the quality management systems that are in place, together with an on-site assessment of competence through surveillance of work by actual operatives. That leads to a recommendation on certification and a formal decision being made. The applicant is then advised of the outcome and provided with details of the appeals process, or if there are improvement actions to be completed, sets out what needs to be improved in order to gain certification. After certification, as mentioned, the Trustmark scheme operated by the FMB can then be applied to, and based on the IAA certification, that will result in Trustmark registration for that contractor. And I mentioned the Green Homes Grant Administrator also needs to be notified in order to be eligible for work. So that's the very quick overview, and Ron will now look at the actual process for applying, and particularly what onboarding help, such as these seminars, is available from the IAA. So Ron, over to you.
Thank you, Jerry, and good afternoon, everyone. So after looking at how to gain the PAS certification, we now go on to how you can apply for your certified membership. The following slide will go into detail the measure specific requirements. So to recap, the detailed requirements depend on the measures involved. For example, a systemized measure such as cavity wall insulation requires that the system designer endorses the installer application for membership and provides PAS compliant training to the technicians. Installations must then meet the requirements of PAS, the technical approval and IAA and other best practice guidance. Whereas for loft installation, there is no system specific training requirements, and generic MTC, minimum technical competence, and NVQ competence are acceptable. Under PAS 2035, using an approved system, the IAA and SEGA members can reduce the inherent technical risk under PAS 2035 by one. For example, cavity wall installation projects will move from risk level 2 to risk level 1. So what are the application requirements? IAA auditors can provide guidance on the process and rules that needs to be followed. So what are the measure specific requirements? You need to provide measure specific requirements such as system designer endorsements, etc. Agreement to abide by scheme rules and PAS to include surveillance requirements, evidence of insurance covers, details of previous terminations or removals of other certification or registration schemes, details of principal directors or PSCs who have been associated with the company, previously registered or certified, and finally, submit to HQ system audits and on-site witness assessments of works. So how do you apply? To start the process, there is two ways to apply. Firstly, you could go to the IAA website and complete the online application, or alternatively, you can contact the IAA direct, who will provide you with a membership application form and provide you with guidance of the next steps. Applications are then accessed by the IAA through headquarter office audit and on-site surveillance of work. Within the current climate, if you can't facilitate social distancing, the IAA will set up a remote desktop audit through Microsoft Teams, etc. And the IAA auditors can provide advice and guidance through generic checklists for audit documentations, which can be provided in preparation. So what are the application undertakings? Successful applicants must abide by the following: IAA guaranteeing scheme rules, terms and conditions, IAA certification rules, IAA Trustmark scheme rules, PAS 2030, Trustmark customer charter, Trustmark code of conduct, Trustmark framework operating requirements, and finally, Trustmark brand guidelines. So on to the audit checklist. As mentioned earlier, the IAA will provide advice and guidance in forms of various documents. The example shown is a checklist that the IAA provides to prospective members, and scopes and checks are made from that. Scope of all office audit depends on the measures involved, and particularly whether a system measure is involved. So, for example, if a system approach is required, such as cavity wall installation, there will be elements of the audit to cover areas such as agreement certificates, system designer training, carding of approved technicians, and system designer monitoring. The examples detailed above is for a cavity wall installation measure. However, it is quite generic and it can be used across other measures. As you can see, it covers certain areas such as certification, technical competence, property assessment records, management of subcontractors, compliant handling, guarantee records, health and safety, building regulation compliance, and equipment maintenance. It is intended to assess the quality management system and also meets the requirements of PAS and certification scheme rules. There is also a requirement for on-site witness assessment of work, but again, templates are also available to guide these applicants. So how is the certification decision made? Basically, there's 3 steps there, as you can see. First one, you identify if the business is fully compliant. Where the install is fully compliant with the scheme requirements, certification against PAS 2030-19 will be recommended. If a business is not compliant with the requirements of PAS 2030-19, but meets the requirements of PAS 2030-17, including competence, this means that during the period of the Green Home Grant's temporary relaxation, you can claim compliance to this earlier PAS 2030 standard and transition to the 19 standard, subject to submitting improvement action evidence. And thirdly, your business is identified as non-compliant with both standards. In this case, an improvement action will be provided, and you will need to provide evidence and clarification of this improvement action before any certification recommendation can be made. So once certified, what is the next steps for your business? So once you're certified and registered with Trustmark and the Green Homes Grants Administrator, the business first steps will be to claim their business account, in which you will need to follow the process for registering and gain access to the data warehouse. Firstly, search for your business using the name as displayed on the Trustmark website. Secondly, claim your account sends an activation email to your email address provided by the scheme provider. Thirdly, the activate button within the email will redirect you to the website business portal sign in, where you can create your password and log into your account. Evidence that will be required within the lodgement includes building assessment, energy efficient measure design, pre-installation survey, handover pack, declaration of conformity, details of any ventilation upgrades. There is also a need to register with the Green Homes Grant Scheme administrators in order to reclaim any vouchers. So what does this all cost? The value of work and compliance costs are increasing, but the IAA offers a class-leading proposition. Charges are based on risk, i.e. external wall insulation and park homes are classified as a higher risk over, say, loft insulation. So, for example, for an initial annual audit and membership fee, your first measure, £750, second measure, £250, then for every measure after that, additional measures, £250 each. So, for example, 2 measures, £1,000, 3 measures, £1,250, and obviously 4 measures, £1,500, and so on. So what are the ongoing costs? Other fees are to ensure work complies. A guarantee fee, which varies by measure. These can vary from a 2-year loft guarantee of £12 to a 25-year external wall insulation guarantee of £100, which includes ISA submission costs. Also to note, Trustmark requirement for deposit protection is covered by IAA ISA scheme by providing that work and deposits are covered from the date of independent surveillance of assessment. ISA fees, independent surveillance of assessment, which is the independence, like I say, this is a requirement within PAS 2030. You will have your Trustmark data warehouse lodgement fee, which are £30 per property. This is again direct to Trustmark. You will have your certification surveillance fees, which is a requirement within PAS 2030 and a requirement as a certification body to carry out. These are payable based on actual work volumes, your activity, and based on PAS 2031 surveillance rates per measure. For example, it is currently £7.50 per PAS compliant installation for cavity wall insulation. This is based on 5% target surveillance rate. The value of work and compliant costs are increasing, but the IAA certification and the end-to-end proposition offers a class-leading proposition. So what are the other benefits? The IAA membership offers the following within its end-to-end service. As you can see, cost benefits. Your current certification is pay-as-you-go process supporting your cash flow. No need for deposit protection insurance when using the ISA platform. Competitive industry rates. Advice to tackle claim management companies. Technical benefits. We have a 24/7 online access to your personal portal and online generator. Provides Trustmark accepted quality assurance framework, reducing PAS 2035 technical risk by 1. SWISC cavity wall insulation competent person scheme. Pre-assessment independent surveillance of assessment, which is your ISA platform. Development of industry best practice and policies, which you will get access to. We offer training schemes and carding of your workforce. Retrofit coordination certification scheme, helping to professionally develop your RCs and assessors. Retrofit coordination and assessor delivery, using our own qualified staff, helping you ensure your work is compliant. We contribute to development of national occupational standards and NVQs. Other benefits, your voice is heard with regular communications within government and ministers. We help to share future policies. There's continued support through regular updates to members. We demonstrate commitment to quality. Industry-leading Trustmark recognised guarantees available for measures installed, with the exception of park homes. Dedicated membership teams are available to answer your queries, and a shared vision working towards net zero 2050. And finally, license to use the IAA branding across online platforms and prints, including vehicle branding kits. On to the next page. So to gain further information on the IAA, the services, and what the IAA provides, and information with regards to the Green Home grants, simply visit the IAA website. So that concludes the IAA Module 3 presentation, and now on to your questions.